Hi, you are listening to Baachu Talk, a podcast for government services professionals. My name is Bhaskar, and I will be sitting down with our government services leaders to share their stories, discuss their career, and learn all about their values and collective impact in our society. Hi, today's guest is Martin Traynor OBE, Small Business Crown Representative, Cabinet Office. Martin Traynor comes from a business background with much of his early career spent in the hospitality sector, managing various hotels across the UK. He then spent 14 years as Group Chief Executive of Leicester Chamber of Commerce, including the Business Link service. In recent years, Martin moved to a portfolio of non-exec career, where he's now a non-exec chairman of 3 leisure businesses, deputy chairman of University Hospitals of Leicester NHS Trust, and has also completed 2 3-year terms of the Government Regulatory Policy Committee. In the year 2007, Martin was awarded an OBE in HM, the Queen's New Year Honours for service to business and the community for the East of Midlands. Thank you for joining us, Martin. Welcome to Baachu Talk. Great to have you with us.
Yes, delighted to be with you.
Thank you, Martin. Martin, we'll go back to the very early beginning of where were you born and your high school and your education, Martin.
Yeah, okay. Well, I was actually born and brought up in Chepstow in Monmouthshire, which of course is in Wales. I went to Chepstow School, I think probably for the best part of 18 years, and then went on to Cardiff for 3 years to study hotel management. So that's where it sort of started. I think my first job was working behind a bar, and I think that gave me the interest then in the hospitality industry. I suppose if I was to look at career, then I suppose I'm probably in my third career now, because I spent the first 22 years working in the hospitality industry. I then moved to become Chief Executive of the Chamber of Commerce. And as you alluded to there, I've also now in what we describe as the portfolio career, which brings me into contact with 3 leisure businesses that I chair. Also, the University Hospitals, which of course is a very large hospital trust that £1 billion a year turnover, 16,000 employees, so it's a pretty big operation. But I'm also now working a couple of days a week at the Cabinet Office, supporting the small business agenda. And my role at the Cabinet Office is to try and open up procurement for small businesses and to work with small businesses to encourage them to pitch for government contracts. Now, you've got to remember the British government spends the best part of 60 billion a year on goods and services, and there are lots of opportunities there for small businesses. So it's my role really to try and make it easier for them, but also to promote small businesses within central government.
Wow, that's a very, very long, illustrious career there, coming out to even doing bigger and better things as you are doing now with your SME Crown Rep role, Martin. So before we get into the details of your Crown Rep role, let's go back and talk about hospitality a little bit. I mean, like you started 22 years there, Martin, is that right?
That's right, 22 years, and managed a number of hotels across the country. Ended up in Leicestershire in 1990, so we've been in Leicestershire now for 30 years. I managed a hotel in Loughborough for 8 years. I then went over and managed the Grand Hotel in Leicester, and then following that, I joined the Chamber of Commerce.
Wow! And the hotels that you manage, Martin, do you visit them often? Are they still around? How do you?
Oh, very, very much so. Yes, they've changed various groups and things as hotels do, but. Yes, I had 22 very good years in hospitality, but I think it was time then to do something different.
100%, Martin. I think hospitality gives you that holistic view of a business, customer service, and always be on the toes because every day is different. Do you have any memorable moments in your hospitality career, Martin?
Well, it's interesting just picking up on your point there. Somebody said to me, how did you go from running a hotel to a Chamber of Commerce? Well, actually, to run a hotel, you need 2 skills. One is organisational skills, and 2 is communication skills. Running a membership organisation like a Chamber of Commerce, you need communication skills and you need organisational skills, because most chambers of commerce run at least 100 events a year, so it is very much interchangeable. I could talk to you for hours about various stories about hotels and the things I've seen over the years, but it's an unusual sort of career, because it can be a Friday night throwing a drunk out to the bar, and on Saturday night you can be escorting a member of the royal family to a table at a dinner. So it's pretty varied, and as you can imagine, in that type of environment you see lots of things.
Wow, I mean, like 22 years, I think at that point, hotels and stuff would be very, very different. I think, did you had many business travelers and others like what we used to do now in the 90s?
Oh, very much so. I think probably the most interesting hotel I was at was the Gloucester Hotel and Country Club, because that was a real mixture. It was a 120-bedroom hotel. We had massive leisure. We had 2 dry ski slopes and 2 golf courses. So it was a fascinating hotel to work at. But as you can imagine, that was a really mixed business. And we had, I remember rightly, 3 restaurants, 7 bars. It was quite a challenge to operate that one.
So did you had any interesting experience running Leicester's Chamber of Commerce for a few years?
I enjoyed my 14 years at the Chamber, but it was a good 70, 80 hours a week. And I was probably out 3 or 4 nights a week at various events and everything else. So it's quite a full-on job. But of course, what it does do is gives you a wonderful opportunity to understand the business community, understand how it works. And my key role at the Chamber was to understand the concerns of the business community, and therefore then to communicate that to whether it was local government, regional government, or national government. And again, it's the old sort of thing. You because you're involved in that type of activity, you get lots of opportunities to do things. I've been very lucky. I've been presented to the Queen on 3 occasions. So and so there's some nice parts of it, I have to say.
Presenting to Queen, getting an OBE in 2007. Can you share some of the experiences over there as well, Martin?
Yes, I think it comes back to the old sort of thing. You make the most of life, and there are lots of opportunities when you're working in these types of organisations or businesses to do other work. And I've done lots of things where I've been on boards of directors for various charities and things, and you can actually make a difference as well as delivering the day job. And I've very, very much enjoyed that. While I was at the Chamber, I spent 8 years on the East Midlands Regional Assembly. You'll probably recall some years ago we were toying with the ideas of regional government, and I was one of the business representatives on the Regional Assembly. And during those 8 years, I chaired their Regional Scrutiny Board, which is something I'd never done before, but really enjoyable.
Is that what brought you close to the Queen and getting the award, Martin?
The award is separate. I'll come on to that in a second. But again, I think we had various occasions when the Queen came to Leicester to visit, and of course, I was very fortunate to be presented to the Queen when she was with us. The OBE was a wonderful surprise. But I think the citation says for services to business, which was recognising the work I'd done at the Chamber of Commerce and representing businesses, and services to the community of the East Midlands, which was recognising my 8 years at the Regional Assembly and trying to promote the regional agenda.
Wow, that's... So at what point did you move to take non-exec roles from, is it straight after your role at the Chamber of Commerce or?
Yes, I think it was probably about 6 years ago. It was the other thing. I led the merger of the Leicestershire Chamber of Commerce to join up with Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire, and it's now the East Midlands Chambers of Commerce. But it was always on the basis that once I'd done that, I would move on. So, and at that time, I was already doing some work with central government on the Regulatory Policy Committee, which was all about deregulation and how can we make life easier for business. So I already had a relationship with central government. I then took on some other positions, one of which was the hospitals. Again, that's quite a a demanding role, but again, very, very enjoyable. So that's really how it sort of came about. And when I ended up, it must have been January last year when I ended up doing this job, it really was a surprise. I wasn't expecting to be doing this particular role, but it is a very, very enjoyable role.
Wow, that's great. I think, what advice would you give people who are looking at non-exec jobs, and how do you think they need to pick and choose what sort of non-exec roles that they need to take?
Well, there's lots of opportunities out there, but it's really understanding what you can add to a business. Because again, if you're going to go into a normal trading business, then what you need is some sort of experience or a profession that will be of use to that particular business. Because the concept of having a non-executive director is very much about bringing somebody in from outside, one, to help with the governance of the business and the organisation, but also to add value and to be able to advise the executive team on the direction of the business. That's really, so you need to be in a position where you're going to be adding value. If you're looking more towards public sector appointments, then if you tap into any Google engine, public appointments, and it'll give you a list there of all the various public sector organisations that are looking for non-executive directors. Now, right across the public sector, we try and get non-executive directors as part of the services that we deliver in the organisations that we have. So, we advertise those, and I would encourage people to have a look at it, because it's an opportunity to put something back, and also to do something true. Because if you look at the fact that I'm Deputy Chairman now of the hospitals, I've never done anything in health before, but when the Department of Health spoke to me, it was very much on the basis, well, we actually do need business people to support the NHS, because, it's £1 billion a year business, and okay, we're delivering, medicine, etc., for people and caring for people. But the reality actually is it's still a big organisation with 16,000 people that needs to be run. And actually, you do need that experience from business to be able to do that.
Oh, well said, Martin. So, HM Regulatory Policy Committee, in between the other 30-odd things that you were doing, Martin, you were also involved on that. Can you share some of your insights? Also?
Yes, that was an interesting one, because we'd started some work in about 2010, 2011 on deregulation. Because when David Cameron came into office, they did a stock take of regulations, and it was apparent that there were 21,000 regulations that determine day-to-day life, which is a huge stockpile. So what David Cameron had decided to do was to move towards an era of deregulation. And one of the things we did in the very early days was establish what we describe as the Red Tape Challenge. And this was online, giving businesses the opportunity to highlight regulations that were obsolete, irrelevant, or whatever. So we started to do that. And as part of that exercise, we managed to either amend or get rid of the best part of 3,000 regulations. So that helped enormously. But the other thing that we did was, through the Regulatory Policy Committee, was that for every new regulation coming in, we required government departments to do an impact assessment. So what they were effectively asked to do was say, okay, if we're going to introduce this regulation, what's it going to cost business? Because before, people were quite happy to regulate, for the sake of it. So what we were trying to do was say, right, okay, if we're going to bring this regulation in, what's the cost? Do we understand it? And that particular process then made people think about regulations. Are we doing something that's going to slow down business, is going to get in the way, et cetera, et cetera. So what we did at the Regulatory Policy Committee was to analyse those impact assessments to make sure that government departments were calculating what the cost was, and were they reasonable, and was this fair? And yes, it was quite interesting. I enjoyed my 6 years there.
Wow, that is amazing. I think from hospitality to Chamber of Commerce to supporting leisure centers as non-exec to hospitals and to central government. I think no wonder you are now part of us as the Cabinet Office Crown Rep, Martin. Kind of gives you that overall experience. It would be useful, Martin, to just outline a little bit more about Small Business Crown Rep as a role, and maybe in the past you have been with us for 2 years now, Martin, roughly.
Yes, yes, last January.
Yes, so the 2.5 years now. So if you could share, some of the developments or what the role does, that would be great.
Well, I think I always split my role into two. First of all, I'm working with government departments on their procurement exercises. Now, as you can imagine, as an organisation that procures 60 billion goods and services every year, there's quite a large procurement operation across central government. And I think we've got something in the region of 4,000 procurement officers. But inevitably, we are in the public sector and we are custodians of the good old British pound. And therefore, as an organisation, we would probably ask more questions than you would have in a normal commercial PQQ, as we call them, or procurement exercise. So therefore, when we happily send small businesses our 50-page PQQ questionnaire, a lot of businesses will say, my goodness, have I got time to read this? And secondly, would I understand it? So the reality actually is that we do things slightly differently in the public sector. But the role really is to try and make sure that we don't have things that get in the way of businesses. And I'll give you a classic example. Anybody that does business with government is required to have insurance to the value of £10 million. And actually, for a small business, that's quite expensive. And one of the original questions on our PQQ was, do you have £10 million worth of insurance? You either ticked the box yes or no. If you ticked it yes, you went forward. If you ticked it no, you didn't. Now, the policy objective was very much to deal with a business that's got £10 million worth of insurance. We weren't there to promote the insurance industry. So we changed the wording that said, if you are the successful tenderer, will you insure to the value of £10 million? Tick the box. You can just say, yes, you will. So what we did, we stopped the situation where loads of SMEs were rushing out there buying insurance for £10 million unnecessarily on a contract they might or might not win. So it was simple. So we met the policy objective to deal with a business with £10 million worth of insurance without forcing loads of SMEs to get unnecessary insurance. Simple. When we thought about it afterwards, we couldn't understand why we didn't do it in the first place. But that's the type of thing that I get involved with there with our procurement people. The second thing is to work with small businesses, because there's still a perception amongst a lot of small businesses that doing business with government is too hard to do, we're overly bureaucratic, and we don't pay on time. Well, the last one now is definitely not correct, because central government is probably one of the best payers now. But for the other two, they are perceptions. And as we know, perceptions are 9/10 reality. So again, it's a case of working with small businesses, encouraging them, say, well, actually, take a look at this. You actually can make a difference. You can pitch for some of this work. And the government has an aspiration that for every £3 it spends on procurement, it wants £1 spent with an SME. And that on 60 billion a year turnover, that's a fair amount of procurement.
Wow, I think that role is very critical then, Martin, because you're right. Procurement people procure the services or the products that they need to procure, and they might have some spending or some efficiency mindset, because that's why they are procuring for. Yeah. Whereas the SMEs, again, they have their own burdens. They would like to come and help their local suppliers to become a local supplier, revive the local economy. But then, there is a lot of burdens for them. Looks like, this role is a nice bridge between the SMEs and the procurement body. So is it just central government that the role entails, Martin, or you do work
it is very much central government. I don't do local government, obviously, because that would be a huge role. But no, I concentrate on central government. But as you can imagine, we've got 4,000 procurement officers, and we're spending 60 billion. So that should keep me busy, if nothing else.
100%, Martin. So is it like the Crown Commercial Services and the other people that you work with normally?
Yes, I work with them on a very regular basis. Yes, and I form part of that particular team. I'm quite fortunate, really, in that because of where I sit in the Cabinet Office, I go across all departments. So it gives me the opportunity to speak to anybody or anyone. And I'm fortunate I report directly to the Minister.
That's great. I think it also gives that independence, isn't it? Because it looks like you're not a civil servant, but at the same time you are the eyes and ears of the community, the government.
Well, I think the important thing about the role is it is 2 days a week, and I think that's quite important, because if you did the job 5 days a week, you would very soon become part of the institution.
Yes.
The fact that I do it 2 days a week, and I've got other interests, as in the hospital and as in the leisure businesses, keeps your feet on the ground. So therefore, some of the things we're doing centrally, I can actually see what the impact is in the real world, and that is quite a good reality check.
That's brilliant, Martin. So before the COVID crisis, Martin, you might have your regular schedule. You might be traveling around meeting people, both on the procurement side and also on SME side. How do you normally structure your day?
Well, I was normally in London at least twice a week. We would have various meetings at the Cabinet Office where I'd be talking to businesses, or I'd be talking to parts of the government service. But I also spent quite a lot of time out and about. So I've been visiting businesses in Hull. I've been over Staffordshire. I've been up to meet the Scottish Executive. I've also been down to the Welsh Assembly. So I've tried to not make it totally London centric. So I've tried to get out and about and an opportunity, one, to meet people, but also to spread the message. This was in the days when you could meet people.
100%. Now you can still meet people, but albeit virtually, I assume.
Well, I'm probably doing 6 or 7 Zoom meetings a day now, so that seems to be new. But ironically, I'm probably getting around more people now than I was actually when I was doing the physical stuff.
Yes, 100%, Martin. I think that it's really true. Then you might be wondering why we haven't done that in the past, right? I mean, like it's
well, I think the technology now is improving all the time.
Yeah,
and I think that I think this will just become the norm.
Yeah.
But if you think about the amount of money we've probably spent on travel, moving people around, trying to get them all in one place at the same time, the cost of that is huge. Now that this technology is up and running, it'll be the norm.
100%, Martin, 100%, and you can be anywhere in just a matter of seconds, and and it makes a big difference. Martin. So in 2 days, Martin, working alongside government and cabinet office and also moving around, is there any kind of an event calendar or some sort of resources that people can tap into as first point of contact if they want to get in touch in how the whole thing works, Martin?
Well, again, I'm on the government website, but people are more than welcome to contact me if they have any issues, and I'll happily deal with it as best I can. And often people contact me, and it's really just for me to signpost them to the right area.
Yeah. That's perfect, Martin. So we talked about COVID, and we also slightly talked about adapting. What have you seen in this past 3 months, Martin, that in the COVID crisis from your side, how the government kind of reacted to it, and the inspiring stories and positive things that happened?
Well, it's interesting because I would probably describe my role 3 months ago was dealing with procurement, but I think in the last 3 months I've probably spent more time dealing with frontline business support and the procurer of PPE goods and services. So it's I think it's fair to say that the whole of the civil service now is engaged somewhere in COVID-19. So it's been a huge cultural change. But, this is a national emergency and we've had to step up to the plate, all of us. And, I talk about 2 days. I'm not sure which 2 of the 7 it is at the moment. But, so we're all having to put a lot of effort into to try and support this. The government, I think, has acted pretty well. That we've done something that we've not normally done in the past. And we often describe it as the 80-20 rule. In that we've had to get a lot of support packages out there very quickly because for a lot of businesses, cash was drying up. Now, the reason I say it's 80-20, when you do what we've been doing, which is making the statement, then developing the policy and the implementation, you're probably only going to get to about 80% of the businesses you want to. But what you will try and do then is pick the other 20% up on the way. As you can imagine, it's been a very, very difficult time for a lot of small businesses. The government has tried as best it can to, inject things through furlough to be able to try and support business for that. There are funds available that people can pitch for. Business rates have been cancelled. So there's lots of things the government has been trying to do. But as you can imagine, we have had to move at such pace. A lot of the schemes haven't been perfect. We know that. But again, it comes back down to the 80-20 rule. We needed to get something out there pretty quickly.
Wow, that's brilliant, Martin, because the general expectations is, yes, it could have been done better, but this was nobody knew and nobody had a contingency plan or anything like this sort of things, right? And with what we know, with what we have, I think we all have done our best part there, Martin. So from your side, it's also interesting that looks like, with the SME engagements and other things, and you are also part of the COVID procurement and stuff.
Very much so.
Yes. So you have been an avid contributor in LinkedIn, Martin. You know what? Frequently I see you post. So if any of the listeners, please do follow Martin, because Martin Traynor in LinkedIn, as you rightly said, any government related posts, Martin always shares it very quickly. So if you want to know what's happening in the government, follow Martin in LinkedIn. Is it a fair comment, Martin?
Yes, I try to get as much information out there through LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a very, very useful portal because a lot of businesses have contacted me that way, and I've been able to point them in the right direction. But I'm also trying to establish my LinkedIn presence there as a safe source for advice, because there's an awful lot of stuff out there that isn't necessarily as accurate as you'd like it to be. But I always make sure we've got the government publications on there. And the advice I also give to businesses, if you go to any of the search engines and you tap in business support, it will take you to the government website. And on the government website, there are all the various packages. But if businesses can do that, I would also say to you, look, sign up for the e-alerts, because when a new package comes out or we change something, you will get an email notifying you. But there's also a portal there that if you're having any particular difficulties or something specific to your sector, you've got the opportunity to register it on this portal. And a summary of that portal goes to the Secretary of State for Business every day. So it's one way of helping to communicate the issues direct to government.
That's brilliant, Martin. And regarding the public procurement and how SMEs can, start to support government as the suppliers, Martin, are we planning to launch any readiness programs, or what? This is how you can find opportunities. This is how you can bid opportunities, etc.
Well, at some stage, we will go back to an element of normality, as in we will be procuring usual goods and services. But what we are doing now is planning for what we're describing now as the rebooting of the economy.
Yeah.
Because the reality actually is there are a lot of businesses out there that, probably got enough cash to survive, but suddenly, order comes in. Have you got the credit then to make these things, supply them, and then get paid? So we're looking at all those options at the moment about, how we can help businesses through the next phase. Because as a colleague said to me the other day, this isn't a sprint, this is a marathon.
Yeah.
And that's the stark reality of it. So, and what we have done, we've started pulling people out of the teams now to start looking at post-COVID. And we recognise quite clearly that it will be different, and a lot of ways we do business will change. But also what we have been able to do during the COVID crisis is change the way that we've done procurement, so we can do things quickly and a lot simpler. So it's a case of now saying, well, what learning can we take from that? Why would we want to go back to an old bureaucratic system if we've been able to do it during COVID-19? Why can't we do it the other side? And that very much fits into my agenda about it making it easier for small businesses.
That's brilliant, Martin. But the direct awards and making it easy, Martin, because most of the SMEs, obviously, they don't have relationship with central government or let alone local government, Martin. And these sort of opportunities, they tend to rely on trackers, the tenders direct and other things, Martin. And how can they know this, this is a faster procurement and, what, there is a need. You don't need to apply through the tender portal. You could come direct, something like that.
What I would suggest they do is to look on Contracts Finder.
Contract Finder, yeah.
So every tender that we issue over the value of £10,000 has to be put on that site, and any public sector tender above 25,000, that would be local government, NHS, etc., has to be put on that tender. It's a free service. You just tap in, you register, you can get e-alerts when these things come out. So that is the single source of all the public sector tendering. Now, for local government, when they're doing things below 25,000, you'll probably find that the local authorities will have their own, for instance, here in Leicestershire, it's Source Leicestershire. So, but that tends to be for the smaller pieces of it. But anything that's, again, above those thresholds, you will find on Contracts Finder.
What really fascinates you about Cabinet Office and in your role, Martin, in currently what you're doing?
Well, I have to say, I've probably spent most of my life the other side of the table, as in campaigning or championing SMEs and everything else. So you're never quite sure when you move the other side of the table what it'll actually be like. But I have to say, I have been extremely impressed by the calibre of people that are working in the Cabinet Office, and actually their not only their dedication, but their willingness to listen to what I have to say about how we can make it easier for small businesses. And I've been really impressed by that because, it's an environment you don't automatically think would be business friendly, but I've been seriously impressed.
Oh, that's great, Martin. I mean, that's it. I think, people have all come together in this time of crisis, and they all are doing their best to serve the community, serve the country. Yeah. And I'm great that you are doing your part, and we all are doing our part. So, okay, let's move to a few random questions, Martin. So,
yeah.
What made you laugh or smile recently?
Well, I have to say I saw something on the television of remote learning for primary school children.
Okay.
And the head teacher, for when she opens it up in the morning, has a different type of dinosaur suit on. And I just thought it was so funny. But if you're going to engage with primary school kids, that will get their attention. And hats off to it. It just really made me smile. I thought, yeah, that's actually quite clever, but funny.
100%, Martin, because I have two boys, 9 and 7. You can clearly see how much struggle the teachers and my wife has to go through in making them focus in this virtual environment, in this online learning.
It's a challenge.
100%, 100%. So let's see. Can you comfortably eat in a restaurant by yourself or watch movie on your own?
Yes and yes, really. I suppose I've been brought up in a hospitality sector for 20 odd years. It wouldn't faze me to eat in a restaurant on my own, but it's a bit sad, I would say. But no, it wouldn't be a problem to me. And again, happy to watch a movie on my own.
That's brilliant. What movie or book character are you similar to?
Yeah, I struggle with that one, actually. I couldn't really think of anything that I would have probably aligned myself to, but there you are. Never mind. I suppose we'd all like to be Rick from Casablanca, wouldn't we?
That's a good one. Do you have any nicknames, Martin?
Not that I know of.
What trait do you really like the most about yourself?
I like to think I'm inclusive. I'm a great believer in taking people with us, not on the basis of you will do what I say, but try and work with people, take them with you on the journey.
Oh, wow. That's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. So let's move to the next one. If you can only eat 3 foods for the rest of your life, what 3 foods would you pick?
3 foods, my goodness. I do like steak. I do like smoked salmon. And my goodness, I like baked Alaska. So
that's it. You pick what you like. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have any pets at home, Martin?
Yes, we've got 2 cats. And yes, I've been finding it quite strange just being here all the time. So 2 lovely animals, actually.
That's nice. So if you could ask your pet cats 3 questions, what would you ask them?
Where were you last night? What else? I don't know. What have you seen? What else would I ask them? Don't know. Where? Yes. What? I suppose it comes back to the old sort of thing. You own a dog, but a cat owns you.
Oh wow, that's brilliant. That's great. Yeah. Who has had a major influence in your life and career?
I think there were 2 people I worked with that did influence me. One of the first general managers I worked under in a hospitality, she was brilliant with people. And it didn't matter where she was in the hotel, she could stop any member of staff and have a conversation with them, often talking about members of their family, etc., etc. And people would have gone 110 miles for her. And I think that was a good thing to learn from. And another general manager I worked with, who was very, very good at organising things, but he had a brilliant way of delegating, in that he empowered you to do it, and I learned a lot from that.
Wow, 2 powerful people. And in life, family?
Yes, I've got a wife and a very expensive daughter.
I'm sure they had a major influence on you as well, Martin.
Very much so, very much so.
Who's the kindest person you know?
I will put it down as my grandmother, late grandmother now, sadly, but she was the kindest person I ever knew.
Oh, that's brilliant. What is something you have that is of sentimental value?
Oh, I think sentimental value. Oh, my grandfather's World War II medals.
Oh, wow. Okay. So do you keep them safe at your place?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. And you're looking at the stuff with Captain Tom and how he's inspired people. And it makes you think that that was a generation that gave up an awful lot.
100%, Martin. I think the country need to recreate themselves, isn't it, from pretty much.
Yes.
That's cool.
Most definitely.
Yes. When you're having a bad day, what do you do to make yourself feel better?
It's normally a large gin and tonic. but seriously, I'm one of these people in life. The glass is half full. And we can all have bad days, but there's got to be something positive that comes out of it, and that's the way I look at it. And it's funny. It's going back to the Captain Tom again. It's that positive approach he has to everybody. He says, we'll get over this. And, and I think sometimes people can register with that.
That's so true. That's so true, Martin. And who haven't you spoken lately and you hope that they're doing okay?
There's a good friend of mine in Austria. We worked together many years ago, and I'm hoping to catch up with him at some stage.
Oh, wow, that's great. So what have you observed lately in COVID crisis that reminded you that people are kind?
Well, I think I'd probably give the example of my mother. My mother lives in Cardiff. She's on her own now because Dad passed away a few years ago. But the neighbours have been absolutely fantastic to her. They've done her shopping for her, got some potting compost so she can do her plants. And the kindness those people have shown is quite remarkable. Quite remarkable.
That's great. Would you prefer to live in the Sahara or in Antarctica?
Oh, dear. Cool. To be honest with you, I don't think I want to live in either of them. But I think if I had a choice, I'd probably go for the Sahara. I'm not so keen on the cold.
That's good. If you could visit any place in the world, where would you choose to go and why?
St. Petersburg. I think the history around St. Petersburg and the Hermes Museum and everything, I'd really like to do that.
Good. If you could go back in history, which character would you very much like to meet?
Like to meet?
Uh-huh.
Do you know what? I think Henry VIII.
Okay.
Because there has been so much written about him. It'd be interested to know which was true.
Do you have any questions for him? Maybe he's listening.
Yeah. I'd certainly be interested in what his religious views were.
That's great. What song do you sing only when you are alone, and what memory does it bring back?
Oh, blimey. I don't think I really do, to be honest with you. I can't say anything comes to mind.
No? So do you have any hobbies or interests then, Martin?
Very interested in history. So I like reading books about history.
Wow. So do you recommend any 3 interesting books?
I've read so many over the years. I like politicals. I'm just reading at the moment the biography of John Bercow, the Speaker. So that's quite interesting.
Wow, that's great. So if Jurassic Park were real, would you visit it?
Oh, definitely.
That's great. And the last one is, if you could choose between 50 years of being incredibly happy or to live the normal life, what would you choose?
Oh, 50 years of being happy, definitely. You're on this planet but once.
Exactly. That's brilliant. And the last one is, what's the best advice you have received from and from whom?
It was actually from the chief executive of the county council here. He said to me many years ago, he said, when you're in one of these meetings, don't listen to what is said, listen to what is not said. And I thought that was very shrewd advice, because people will happily talk about things that they all agree on, but actually what's the real issue? And it's often the unsaid is the real issue.
That's really, really powerful. Really powerful. And are you a morning person or a night person, Martin?
I would say a night person, though COVID-19 has made me an early and a late person.
That's good. That's good. And tea or coffee?
Tea.
Oh, that's good. Okay, the final one. So what advice would you give to the small businesses that are trying to recreate and reinvent themselves in this COVID crisis?
I think it's hold the faith. We will get over this, and there will be bright opportunities in the future. And I firmly believe that.
Definitely, Martin. Thank you. And what's something that you're looking forward to in the future?
Going to a nice restaurant and having some nice food and wine.
I think we all are longing for that, isn't it? So that's brilliant. Martin, is there any part of your life or career or anything in particular with the SME Crown Rep role that you're doing that you want to touch now?
No, I think we've done a fairly comprehensive one, haven't we? So no, I think so. I'm looking forward to getting back to a little bit of normality, where I'm dealing more with businesses on procurement than I am on frontline business support. But that comes back to there is a future out there.
Yes, definitely. We'll all will come out of this. That's a brilliant close to the episode. So thank you so much, Martin, for your time today. It's really been a privilege to have you with us at the very first kindness series of Baachu Talk. Thank you. Wish you all the good health and happiness. Please continue to inspire everybody around you. Look after yourself. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay kind. Thank you, Martin.
That's very kind of you, and you stay safe as well.
To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Please do visit baachu.com/Baachu Talk podcast to this specific episode link to everything that was mentioned in this episode. Don't forget to subscribe, review, and share Baachu Talk podcast with your loved ones. We will see you at the next episode with another special guest. Until then, it's Bhaskar Sundaram from Baachu signing off.